I stand in my place to speak to Bill 11. The purpose of this bill is to provide oversight and accountability over the Orange Air Ambulance Service. I cannot support Bill 11 for three reasons. Bill 11 does not provide complete protection for whistleblowers. Bill 11 does not allow independent oversight of Orange by the Ombudsman. And Bill 11 does not change the flawed corporate structure of Orange. I will come back to my criticisms of the bill after providing some context. Bill 11 is a roadmap of what the minister should have done in response to concerns that were raised years ago. The minister has had the power all along to stop the malfeasance at Orange, so we don't need Bill 11. The calls for a ministerial investigation into Orange came first in 2008, 5 years ago, then in 2010, and again in 2011. In March of 2012, a majority of the members of this House voted to form a select committee to investigate serious allegations of misconduct at Orange. Even though the health minister promised that, quote, I support the will of this legislature and the will of the legislature rules supreme, end of quote, the select committee on Orange has never been formed by this government. Nonetheless, the Standing Committee on Public Accounts has been relentlessly investigating this issue for well over 100 hours now and has slowly but surely been pulling the story of the Orange scandal out for its full public airing. In 2005, the responsibility for Ontario's air ambulance service was changed forever. It was entrusted to a startup company headed by an emergency doctor who was a recent MBA graduate from university. This was Orange under the direction of its founder, Dr. Chris Mazza. As an aside, Mr. Speaker, I would like to remind everyone that the other founder of this corporation is this current provincial government. Before 2005, Dr. Mazza worked at Sunnybrook Hospital in Toronto, which happened to be the base hospital for Ontario's air ambulance service. Mazza was exposed to the air ambulance business. At that time, a few small airlines and one large helicopter company worked on contract for the Ministry of Health. The 25-person team at Sunnybrook called in a plane or a helicopter when required. As part of their contract with the ministry, the companies outfitted their aircraft as air ambulances. Orange was Mazza's brainchild to fix Ontario's air ambulance service. Dr. Mazza had no experience running a corporate operation like this, let alone an operation with a budget of $150 million. By 2004, Dr. Mazza had sold the McGuinty Liberal government on his plan. Mazza became the President and Chief Executive Officer of Ontario's new air ambulance service. This Liberal government took a hands-off approach from the beginning. In a couple of years, the government allowed Mazza and his board of directors to change a 25-person operation run out of a provincial hospital facility into a 234-person corporation housed in a $15 million building that the employees called the Crystal Palace, miles away from a hospital. Where the old air ambulance service used contracted airlines, Dr. Mazza thought it best to purchase 12 custom helicopters from Italy for $144 million and a fleet of 10 single-engine aircraft from Switzerland. By 2011, Orange had grown into a not-for-profit corporation with many for-profit subsidiary corporations employing over 400 people, including several vice presidents and executives, managers, dispatchers, paramedics, pilots, and aviation specialists. It had its own air and land ambulances operated from 12 bases across the province. The Auditor General's report of March 2012 regarding Orange was scathing in its criticism of this Liberal money pit. The Auditor General, Mr. Jim McCarter, said Orange was, quote, one of the most difficult oddities we have ever encountered, end of quote. He was speaking from 9 years of experience and commenting on the lack of cooperation from Mazza and his employees. The complexity of the corporate structures at Orange and its subsidiaries are still being untangled by investigators. Deaths that occurred on Orange's watch are still being investigated by Ontario's new chief coroner. This investigation was put on hold last fall when the old chief coroner suddenly became the new CEO of Orange. We are also still waiting for the results of investigations by the OPP. Since 2006, over $750 million in public health care dollars have funded this government startup. In 2011, Orange was $300 million in debt. Non-profit corporations and charities were set up to benefit a number of for-profit corporate entities. Public funds were used to leverage investment in the for-profit companies. The scheme was to generate funding for the Orange nonprofits. It was doomed from the start. One Orange for-profit subsidiary kept 97% of its profits and only returned 3% to the public purse. Dr. Mazza was enabled by his board of directors, so the culpability is not singular. Many perks flowed to senior staff members at Orange as well, although the main beneficiary was Dr. Mazza. In 2005, Mazza's salary was $284,000. By 2011, his salary had grown to $1.4 million and grew to $2.6 million by the time he was fired in February of 2012. Mr. Speaker, in the last month at Public Accounts Committee, we have learned that Mazza got the board to purchase life insurance policies for him. The latest policy uncovered was a $10 million policy on Mazza, with the beneficiary being one of Orange's for-profit entities. We have learned that Mazza went so far as to design the interiors of the new helicopters, but this led them to being too small for paramedics to perform CPR in flight. We have learned of intravenous tubing incompatible with hospital tubing. We learned of $1 million spent on patient movers for the airplane fleet that are too heavy for the aircraft. We learned of possible kickback payments to a helicopter manufacturer who is now being investigated over a similar deal with India. We also learned of dispatch problems and of Mazza's policy of preventing Orange helicopters from attending a distress call until it was determined that their presence was absolutely necessary. It is clear this government agency was allowed to forget about its core mandate. Mazza got Orange to pay for his $1 million home and fine cars, $150,000 for 2 custom motorcycles from California, a $40,000 speedboat, his jet-setting lifestyle. He even submitted the interest on his credit card as an expense. Mazza got his girlfriend a job and a free MBA education. Public health care dollars were frittered away like this on government's watch. Lives most certainly have been put at risk because of this minister's shortcomings. She turned a blind eye until she was forced to look. The people who forced her to look were the whistleblowers, the Orange employees who couldn't hold back the truth any longer and put their livelihoods on the line. In fact, right now there is an Orange employee suing the company for being fired after she cooperated with the ongoing investigation. We wouldn't know anything about these problems without these people. Bill 11 fails to provide real protection for employees in the future who would come forth with information we need as legislators. And the best way to provide for independent oversight and accountability in government service delivery is by allowing the Ombudsman to investigate. The government won't let him. With Bill 11, the government is trying to get away with only mandating an internal complaint resolution process. This provides neither independent oversight nor real accountability. And lastly, another problem with this bill is the fact that it leaves in place Orange's corporate structure that was criticized by the Auditor General. Again, Bill 11 is too little, too late. Bill 11 is nothing but a cover-up for this government's failure to responsibly manage the Orange Air Ambulance Service. Mr. Speaker, I cannot support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Question and comments. The member for Nickel Belt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.